Welcome to the Business of Race podcast, where we examine issues of race and racism, how they impact businesses, and what employers can do to address these issues to create a healthier work environment for everyone. I'm your host, Regina Newkirk-Rucci, the Director of Equity for 90 Forward. And today, I have the honor and privilege of being joined in the conference room by the magnanimous, the illustrious Melissa Fulmore Hardwick. Thank you so much. She is the Chief Information Officer, CSI Companies, as well as the founder and executive director of Brown Girls in the Boardroom. Welcome to the conference room, Melissa.
Thank you so much, my good friend, Regina. I am super excited and humbled to be here today. So
Thank you. And, we should also give a Leadership Jacksonville shout out, as you are one of my LJ classmates.
The legendary
yes, class indeed. Of 2024.
Indeed.
So good to have you here.
Thank you. Good to be here.
All right. So, I always like to just sort of do a little chit chat, check in with each other. And I have really been thinking about this because I haven't been sleeping well. I've just been stressed out. We've got a lot of work, like most people. And, I don't know that we think about ways, really good, effective ways to de-stress. So what are some things that you do when the workload gets heavy to decrease the stress in your life?
Love the question. And it is so appropriate and timely, right? Because there are so many things going on. There's so much work to do. And my pastor preached a sermon the other week about there's a labor shortage, right? But the work is plenty.
That's right.
And so there are times that I need to just decompress. And for me, I am an older mother with a very young son who is so active. And I love spending time with my family. My son in particular, he's an only child. And so he has deemed me as his friend. So just spending time with him, it brings me down. I am not a CIO when I'm with him. I'm not an executive director or founder of an organization. It is mommy. And he reminds me of that.
I bet he does.
And so I find great calmness and a sense of joy in spending time with my family. I come from a very large family. I'm the youngest of 12.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So just hanging out with my siblings is always a treat. But I am also strong in my faith. And so I love to start my day with inspiration. And I'm into journaling now. And so I have this journal that kind of leads and guides me into this meditation place that I absolutely have found to be something that I enjoy.
I actually did a silent retreat for a weekend at a monastery.
Oh, wow.
With a prayer journal, and found that was really good, very centering. That's not something you do on a regular basis, but I definitely enjoy journaling to get some things out. And one thing that I think you can do that the monastery provided is a change of venue, right? I noticed that if I'm at home, even if I'm doing something that is calming and fun and relaxing, I'm still looking at, the clothes that I need to put in the washer, and, I could go ahead and get that dish done, and, I forgot I was going to write those bills. All of the reminders of the stress around me.
Sure.
But if I'm in another location, preferably the beach, but if I'm in another location, that those reminders are gone, and that also helps me de-stress a little bit.
I love that. And again, with the sense of busyness that happens day in and day out, I can't always steal away. So I have deemed my patio as my away place. And when I'm on the patio, my son and my husband kind of leave me alone. And so that works. But I can see how getting away kind of makes it easier because you're not distracted.
Yeah, it's just all of the stuff
sure
isn't there, and that feels a little calmer,
more conducive
to just taking a moment and breathing it in. But I do think it's really important to do that because we do have busy lives. I sometimes marvel at how busy I am. I woke up this morning thinking about the things I had to do.
Sure.
Right? And I'm like, okay, like right out the gate, busy, 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 busy. So really taking some time to meditate, relax, focus on faith, focus on family, focus on yourself.
Say no.
Say no.
How do you even do your yes is good if you're never able to say no?
Yes.
So I'm learning that more and more.
And, Brene Brown talked about that in her book, right?
Yes,
because your yes is more meaningful when you say no.
Absolutely.
And I think sometimes we become sort of a people-pleasing society, and and I want to do it. There are a lot
and
of things
feel like
I
you
want
have
to
the
do.
wherewithal to do
it, right? I can do that.
Absolutely.
But can I really? Do I have the capacity?
And are you doing it well, right? Am I really showing up in a way that I'm going to knock this out of the park? And typically when we got too many yeses, we don't.
Right. So I think that's good. Maybe that's really what we should take from the whole de-stressing. Learn to say no.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's hard for me.
Yeah.
It's very hard. So,
All right. Well, so as we move into our agenda topic today, you are very accomplished, and you are extremely accomplished in what most would consider a very male-dominated field, right? The tech world and doing all the IT things tends to be a lot of men. And so you are the lead at CSI. You don't just walk into that job.
that's correct.
So a lot of women of color are looking to advance in the workplace. And I think that we don't oftentimes talk about some of the things that you need to be doing, both the things that are written on the paper and the things that they don't tell you about, in order to prepare for that advancement. So sort of giving you a time to have a little bit of retrospect, right? What are some of the things for young women who are starting off in their careers, or maybe they are a few years in and really are looking to move up the corporate ladder? What are some things that you think that they really need? Like, again, sort of out of the gate, what are some things you got to focus on and make sure that you're in your repertoire or in your experience?
This is a great question. And it's funny because immediately I think about what someone told me many, many years ago. And that is, you have to have comeback sauce. And so that comeback sauce is when you are engaging with people in the workplace, you leave them with such an impression that they want to come back and interact with you again. In any way that they can, whether it's a promotion, whether wanting you to come be a part of their team, wanting to leverage you for other opportunities. But I was taught I think I was maybe a freshman in college, and had a young lady who was kind of my mentor say to me, what is your comeback sauce? What is it that when you are in somebody's presence, you do so well that they need to come back and deal with Melissa? And that has never left me, right? I've always, when I've gone on a job, said, all right, Melissa, you got to have a comeback sauce. What is your comeback sauce? And so that leads me to this place where I happen to be a great communicator, right? IT was not my choice of a career. I was actually pretty good in math, and so I majored in accounting. So my undergraduate degree is in accounting. So I found myself working for a job where I was using this technology system as an accounting person, and I was that subject matter expert. So I was the one young training my team on how to use. I wasn't afraid of technology. And so I migrated in this space, and I can recall being at JEA, and I had been in consulting for a while, so very fast paced. And I remember one of my leaders saying to me, you have this gift, and you are able to communicate to folks that are non-technical how this technology works. You've got the gift of communication. Like, you got to tap into that. And I felt like at that moment, they said something and it triggered something in my mind. How do I leverage this communication as an asset for my career? And so that led me to this place where I wasn't afraid to talk. So how do I use now communication and my comeback sauce? I love people. I love engaging people. And so I always enter into particularly a work environment, trying to engage in conversations where I am my authentic self, but I present in a way that my heart, I'm trustworthy, I'm direct, I'm honest, and people are attracted to that. And so that has always been my comeback sauce, is to communicate well and to be honest And that has served me very well in my career.
Well, I want to break that apart, right? Because I really like the comeback sauce. I will be using that. Thank you. But I want to break it apart, right? So let's talk about essentially how you make your comeback sauce. So the first thing I heard was you have to know what you're good at.
Absolutely.
And that I think is something that a lot of people don't necessarily, it seems like an intuitive, right? I'm good at this, I'm good at that. But I think it's important to really have that self-analysis, what you're good at, but also what other people say you're good at, right? Because somebody told you that you had this ability.
Which means they saw that.
They saw it, right? So how do you go about structuring it so that you're getting quality feedback from other people, and who are those people, as well as being able to take that self-inventory and say, okay, hey, I'm really good at this. Because I think for women, sometimes that's hard, right? We're really taught to downplay our strengths.
Absolutely.
And, it seems conceited, or it seems you're being grandiose or something. And we're sort of taught to downplay that. But how do you take a really honest look at yourself and say, nope, I am the bomb in this. This is really my area.
I have always self-reflected. I've been really good at that. I graduated with a very high GPA, full ride scholarship into college, and managed to lose my scholarship. And my dad was like, all right, you're coming back home. And I'm like, well, that's not an option. People will know that I have failed, right? And it was in that moment that I learned how to self-reflect. Like, Melissa, this is a real thing. Like, you went to college and you didn't make it. You have got to bounce back from this. And how do you do that, right? Well, that put me in a posture where I felt like I had hit rock bottom to really have to self-reflect, right? Not even sure if I was doing well, I would have been able to get that lesson. But I met a recruiter, went to the military, got accepted into officer school. They paid for me to finish college. And so my story ended okay, but it was because I was able to self-reflect. In addition to that, I have always wanted feedback. I'm the youngest of 12. So I've been accustomed to my sisters and my siblings telling me what I need to do, right? And so it was easy for me to be able to take constructive criticism. And I feel like those people that are able to self-reflect and are okay with saying, first of all, mediocre to me is a fatal state to be in, right? When you are comfortable somewhere, that's dangerous. I've never been comfortable. I have always been okay being uncomfortable. And I think that has provoked me to want to ask questions to my leaders, like, what can I do to improve, right? I'm always raising my hand. What can I do to improve? Help me get to this next level. And so I've had opportunities where people have noticed that, and I've had opportunities where I've been open to asking for feedback, right? And being willing to take it. And so I said a lot, but self-reflection has always come easy for me once I had that experience of saying, go home because your grades are not good enough for this scholarship, and not having a family that wasn't able or to afford for me to go to college. And so I've taken that. It's been a lesson for me, and I am comfortable being uncomfortable in that I want you to tell me what I can do to improve. And some people can't handle that. Some people will never go to their boss and say, what can I do to improve? Because in their minds, they're thinking they're going to tell me something that I need to do different. And it could be above what I'm supposed to do, or it could be something that I don't know if I'm capable of doing. I've never had that problem. And so self-reflection has been a bonus for me.
Well, and so again, as we're giving advice, because I'm sort of talk about some of the things that you're saying in what you're saying, in addition to that self-reflection, right, there's the fact of you're going to have to be bold and ask for it, and be ready for what comes at you.
That's the trick. Right. And that one of the things that I think has really allowed me to also be in this position is, listen, I come from a family of faith. We were raised in the church. You had to stand up, you had to sing, you had to give Easter speeches. All of that was building my confidence to be this communicator that I said I think has really, God has allowed to help position me to where I am today. And so what I was also good at was taking orders. And I think when I couple those two things together, I'm like, I can go ask, but Melissa, you better be prepared for what the work looks like. My dad used to tell us every day at the breakfast table, you go to school and don't you let any student outwork you. And that has transformed into many of my siblings when I think about the way we work, our work ethic, which leads back to this working so much, right? Not stopping.
Right.
He's always said, don't let anybody outwork you. So I've not been afraid to take advice because I'm not afraid to work.
Right. And, I think there's also just the position on how you take constructive criticism, because I think a lot of people can take it and, oh, that hurts, right? That injures my pride. It injures this picture I have of myself, as opposed to, okay, so if I do that, I can be better.
Sure.
Right? I can move up a notch. I can take it as a way to improve. And so I think if you sort of set feelings aside to some degree with the constructive criticism, now I think it's also key of who you get it from.
100%.
Right?
100%.
Everybody's criticism isn't great for you. But if you have those trusted people, right? If you have those mentors, those people who are doing the jobs that you want, and they're giving it to you, if you take that as opposed to, oh, wow, that really hurts, but okay, I can use that. Maybe take a minute to feel some kind of way about it. But okay, then let's get ready to go.
Yeah. And I've always scoped out leaders in organizations, right? I've studied leaders and said, Melissa, who is the leader that you want to be like? That you see their behaviors, you see their leadership style, that you really can take something from that. And those are the people that I seek out. I say, what can I do? What can I do to improve? And particularly if I'm new to an organization, these folks have been there for a while, help me learn this culture. It's funny because one of the best pieces of advice that I actually listened to from one of my previous bosses, I talked about how I love to communicate. We're spirited by nature. So there are times when we're in meetings and I know that I'm well studied and I know my crap because I've stayed up all night because I was expecting this meeting to happen. I've gone to the meeting and I've been ready. Right. And he would always say, you got guns a-blazing, Melissa. You don't have to go in and fight every single time. You don't have to prove yourself. You deserve to be here. But he gave me this advice and he said, I want you to play in the band more. And that thing cut right through me, Regina. I was like, well, what is he saying? Is he trying to tell me to shut up? I know what I'm talking about. What does he mean? But he was teaching me the power of relationships and collaboration. Right. He said, you're going to go places. You're really, really bright. But I want you to listen and collaborate more. He's like, now you could be a drummer and be the only one in the band beating the drum, but you can also play in harmony with all these other instruments that makes the band even greater. But when he said play in the band, I was just like, what are you saying? But he was just really trying to say to me, I want you to build these relationships. And early on in my career, and I think many of us African-American women, we've worked really, really hard because we work twice as hard. And I'm in a male-dominated industry, right? So I've worked really, really hard. And so I felt like I want to be heard, right? I want people to know that I know my stuff. Well, that also came with talking too much. And so that playing in the band allowed me to sit back in a room, listen to everybody's thoughts. And then if I needed to speak, I could. Okay. But I struggle with that thing.
There are so many points of goodness that were in that statement that I want to get to. But I want to pause the band because I'm going to come back to that one. But I also want to talk about the fact that you're seeking people out, right? And I think this gets to the point of mentors because that's really important. And I don't know that women truthfully, but definitely women of color do this to the extent that they need to because, I listen to a couple of people and they're like, oh, I have a mentor or I have somebody I talk to. And I'm like, you should have quite a few mentors because different people bring different skills, different perspectives. You need some folk who are inside and know the culture. You need some folk who are outside and don't know the culture.
That's right.
Right. Some people who know you, some people who don't. And so how do you really go about identifying those leaders, those people you want to connect with? When they give you that constructive criticism, it's going to matter because you have so much respect for who they are and what they're doing.
Sure. I typically pick my mentors based on the position I'm in and where I'm trying to go. My current job, they offered us all executive coaches for the executive team, C-suite. And we had all of these bios of all the people we can pick to be our mentors. And there were African-American women on there. There were women, some bad women that could really help me on my journey. And there were some men that were Caucasian that didn't look like me. I realized the environment that I was in. And I said, I want a middle-aged white male as my mentor. I knew what I was up against in that particular setting. That's what I needed. I needed to know how, now that I am in different spaces with people that looks more like him in the room, I want to know how he thinks. I want to know how he's positioning himself, right? And so my answer to your question is, it depends, right? It depends on what it is I'm trying to accomplish, where I'm trying to go, and the environment that I'm in determines how I'm going to choose a mentor. And so there may be times where my mentor needs to be somebody really spiritual and really, a seasoned mother. I remember when I first got married, I was like, listen, I need a church mother who's been married like 50 plus years because this thing is hard.
It is.
Right. And so I need some real.
And it's every day.
I just feel like there's no direct way to answer that question except to say you got to know what it is that you want and you seek out the people that are representing those things or have had the experience and can help you get there.
Right.
So who my mentor is these last couple of years had not been a mentor, the same type of mentor I had previously.
And I think that's important, right? Where you are in the journey and what you need and being really, really thoughtful about that and extremely intentional about it. And I also think you also ought to be very clear on what it is you need from your mentor.
Absolutely.
Right? You can't just go in and be like, yes, I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, right? And there are times when you don't even know what you need from them, right? This gentleman that I'm talking about, Brene Brown, like we went through this whole lesson on one of the best things he ever told me. He said, so I'm in meetings and we're having this conversation and it's easy for us to say something like, I don't agree. That's not the right. And particularly if that's not the right answer, right? We will hold on to that, but no, that's not right. I disagree. And that would be my posture. Like, no, that's not right. Right. Well, think about the defense that somebody is going to be on if you said that. Right. And here's where the Brene Brown comes in, because he said, I want you to try something a little different. I think I said this in LJ. Instead of saying, I disagree. Now I'm like, well, tell me more.
He did say that.
I'd love to understand the passion around your statement. Right. Now that puts you in a totally different position from me saying, no, that ain't right. I did the research. That ain't right. Right. And so this current coach that I had was like, this energy that you're challenging, like you gotta bring it back. You can still say the same thing, but just use some different words. And all of my life, I'm like, well, why can't I just say what I feel? It's not my problem that they take offense to it. I don't mean anything by it. I'm just saying what I'm saying, but it is my problem. Right. And at this level, if I want to be able to execute and get work done, I better be on the same page as these folks sitting around the room.
Right.
And so I think you got to know what it is that you got to begin with the end in mind. And so I've learned that. It's been a hard lesson in some instances, but good lessons nonetheless.
All right. So now I'm going to go back to the play in the band, because I think that falls in the category of the extras, the others, the things that nobody tells you. It's not going to be on a job description. You're not going to necessarily find it in how to be a leader guide, but those things and that advice, those little tweaks you've made along the way that have better positioned you for attention. Hey, well, this is somebody we should be paying attention to. So what are some other things? I mean, certainly the play in the band, because that's a hard one, right? Especially in situations where I already stand out.
That's right. And I'm not even invited to the band.
I'm not invited to the band.
So you want me to play in a band that really may not even want me in their band. They didn't ask me to be a part of their band.
Right? And so now I'm just got to go
and play with them.
And they don't even necessarily respect all of my musical gifts. Right? Yeah. And that seems really hard. That seems almost counterintuitive, right? Why would I do that? Yeah. So, but it makes sense when you stop and think about it from other people's perspectives. So what are some things like that you would give, advice you would give to women of color some things that they ought to consider in these corporate environments?
What I've learned, the number one thing that has worked for me is to leave my feelings in my car. When I pull up to the job, certain places, I have to leave Melissa's feelings at the door, so to speak. And I think for women, that's difficult, right? Because our feelings do get hurt. That's been this age-old tale of why we aren't good leaders, because we're too emotional, right? And all the things. And I don't think we can change that about ourselves. I think God made us that way. And I think we need to leverage those things even to get to where we need to be. But I have learned to say, it's not personal. It's not personal. As the young people say today, let's stand on business.
Right.
This is business. This isn't personal, right? And so I carry that with me. Ultimately, I always say people before things. I'm in this industry of technology where we want to build technology, and I want to build great technology, right? But if the people aren't using the technology, it's for naught, right? And so I have learned to put people at the very center of everything that I do. Everything that I do. I lead a team. I care about the people, right? And I think if I would say to young people or young women that are coming up, it is people first. People first. I often say to young girls, and we run an internship program for minorities at our job. And one of the things that I always say is you can have personality, you can be smart, you can be all the things. You have got to produce. You have got to have results. And so another thing I always give in terms of advice is find a problem. Find a problem that nobody is talking about and solve it. People need to know that you can deliver. And I think oftentimes that goes back with my comment about being mediocre is fatal, right? What is it that you're doing to stand out? What problems are you solving for this work environment that nobody else has even thought about? And so one of the things that I've become is a really good listener, because I listen for things in the room and I'm like, nobody's taking care of that. I'm going to go solve that. And so I would say, find a problem nobody's working on, and let that be your baby. Put the people first. Know that it's about the people more than anything else. It is about the people. And the other one is leave your feelings at the door. Yeah. Make it about the business and not so much personal.
I agree with that. I think sometimes it's hard.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's
is.
really hard.
It's hard. It's hard for me every day.
Yeah. Right. But I'm like,
because I'm playing in this band.
Right. But I'm going to make better band decisions if my feelings aren't the ones driving.
Sure.
Right.
That's right. That's right. I may not get off beat.
Right.
If my feelings aren't in it. Right. If my feelings are in it, I may be playing a whole different
then
song.
It's going to be about me,
y'all.
because I'm the only one who has those feelings.
That's right.
So that's going to make me the individual as opposed to the band member.
That's
right.
So
that's, I think, extremely important to remember. I also had a boss who told me, he said, make sure that you were in positions to let other people see you shine, but make sure you know your stuff when you're there.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
And so he said, yeah, okay, I have a chance to know that you're great. But if nobody else in the bank knows that, where are you going to go?
Sure.
Right. And so that was an opportunity for me to maybe volunteer for a committee or, again, solve a problem that somebody else can't solve by jumping in over here. But this gives me exposure to another area and another department. Some other people get to see what I do. I get to listen to other conversations that are happening. But again, when I'm there, I got to produce. I got to know what I'm doing.
Yeah. 100%. Raise your hand.
Right.
But know how to deliver.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's, so good. So good. Yeah. All right. So I know we're going to wrap up, and this has been so great, and I hope that
I've enjoyed every
people are really taking advantage of this. But we always sort of like to end with the one big takeaway, right? So if you had just a few minutes, you can listen to the whole conversation, which, you really want to. But if you were just going to focus on one thing, what would you say is the one big takeaway from this?
I would say be scrappy.
Mm.
And what I mean by scrappy is be okay taking advice even when you don't want to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
Be okay with pivoting. Be okay with raising your hand. Be okay with solving problems that nobody else is working on. That's being scrappy, right? And I don't mean scrappy fighting, but it means that I'm able to move in ways that other people may not be able to move in, right? I think about not being a yes man or yes woman, right? Whenever you got people that are always agreeing the same, somebody's not needed.
Right.
Because y'all are thinking the same thing.
Right.
Right. And I also think about another thing that I'd love to wrap up with is you can be a rebel sometimes in terms of not agreeing or not going with the flow, not being a yes man. But you got to pick your battles and make sure the battle that you pick is worth winning. It's the fight is worth the win, right? I think oftentimes we decide we're going to die on this sword and it's not even really worth it. Right. I think about the story of me and my 11-year-old, right? And he used to be in a room downstairs and he would just never keep his room clean. And I was always every day fussing, keep your room clean, keep your room, going back and forth. And, he wouldn't do it. And my husband said one day, move him upstairs. Why are you fighting this fight every day? You see, he's not cleaning up the room. Like it's not working.
Right.
Move him upstairs and tell him to close the door. That wasn't even a fight for me. Every day I'm stressed out about him cleaning up his room. Right. Pick another battle. Move him upstairs and close the door. I didn't want him upstairs that far away from us, but it happened. And it wasn't even worth all the fighting that we had done. Me ruining it, jeopardizing the relationship with my preteen about a room. Close the door. Go upstairs. Close the door. So we got to pick our battles and make sure that we are in a position to win.
Okay. And I think for me, it's going to go back to the knowing yourself. You have to really do some self-analysis because I think you have to know yourself to know where your trigger points are, because if you don't know yourself, you won't be able to put your feelings to the side.
100%.
If you don't know yourself, you're not going to be able to know what you need to get that mentor, to get that advice, to really seek the right people to speak into you to know where you want to go. And even to even know where you want to go.
That's right.
I think lots of times people just like, I want a better job, but
I don't know what job.
I don't know what job, right? So really taking that self-analysis and positioning yourself well to handle the constructive criticism. Because the feedback can take you far if you let it.
That's right.
And putting yourself in position.
You got to be honest with yourself. Knowing yourself is one thing, but I think we struggle with accepting the truth, right? I've had people come to work, amazing, great personalities, doing all the things. Everybody loves them. But where's the meat in that, right? So you got to look at yourself and be honest enough to say, I know myself, I know what I bring, but I got to attach something to I got to attach some deliverables to this great personality. And I think if people are honest with themselves and take this feedback that we get, we all can leverage, I think we'd be better off.
Yeah. And sometimes you have to deal with the fact that, you know what, maybe you aren't so great at it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard to hear.
Yes.
Right? Maybe you do this part well, but this part needs a lot of work.
That's right.
And until you work on it, you aren't going to be able to do anything with this part.
That's right.
And you got to be able to take that and be like, okay, with who I am, right? How can I still be my authentic self, but be better here?
Yeah.
And that requires that knowing yourself and being really, really honest.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I had a boss that told me one time, everybody likes you. When I go for feedback, everybody really likes you. They don't know why. They just know they like you. And I'm like, I got to change that, right? They got to like me because not just I got to like personality, but because we know if we give her something, she's going to fix it.
Right.
And so had to work on that.
And that's, again, I think that's a situation of listening for what's being said, but also listen for what's not being said.
That's right.
Right. So
I agree.
Just paying attention, really knowing. All right. Well, Melissa, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
You know, you shared so much wisdom, and I really hope that is some people find that really beneficial as they go forward in their corporate journey. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right. And thank you for joining us. Be sure to click the like button. We like to be liked. And be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified of any new content, just like this episode, so you can be up to date with the latest and greatest at the Business of Race podcast. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week in the conference room. Take care.